Hello and welcome to this edition of Healthy Living. I'm Kelli Lamb. Joining us today is Freda Thompson, an RN and also an instructor in the education department at Western Baptist Hospital. And Freda is going to be talking with us about automated external defibrillators, or AEDs, and the very important role that they play in saving lives. We're also going to be doing a demonstration on the AED device and also letting you know where you can receive training on this very important device. This is such vital information to you. We want to thank you for joining us, and remember, it's always time for healthy living. Welcome back to Healthy Living. I'm your host, Kelli Lamb. With us today is Freda Thompson, an RN and also an instructor in the education department at Western Baptist Hospital. Freda, thank you for joining us. We are going to be sharing some life-saving information today about automated external defibrillators. So let's just get started. Very simply, what is an AED?
Well, an AED, just like you said, it's automatic, it's external, and it will defibrillate the heart. It's basically a computer. So if someone has collapsed, they're not moving, there's no sign of life, we can externally place some pads on the patient, and the computer will monitor their heart, determine if it's a deadly rhythm that needs to be shocked, and then develop the appropriate charge so that we can defibrillate the patient. So it's a very sophisticated computer that allows us to save a life.
Okay. As I was doing research on AEDs, and there's a world of information out there, I ran across some terms that I wasn't familiar with, and so I wanted to ask you about that. What is public access to defibrillation? What does that mean?
Public access to defibrillation is when you see the signs at the mall that says, here's an AED, or at the airports, here's an AED. And as we were discussing, as I walked into your facility here, there's a sign that says, there's an AED on site. Public access defibrillation means that if I walk into your facility and you have collapsed, then I'm going to have access to a life-saving piece of equipment. Rather than them all being in ambulances or in the hospital situation, they're out there in the public. And it's there that we have people who are going to have sudden cardiac arrest. And the quicker that we can get defibrillation to them, the quicker that we're going to see them survive.
Okay. So can anyone buy an AED? Could I, as an individual, say, go online and buy an AED for myself?
Well, you could probably buy one on eBay, but I wouldn't recommend it. Actually, in Kentucky, AEDs are considered a piece of medical equipment. So you would need to have a physician write a prescription for an AED. So individuals, we haven't found that having them in your home has really been that useful. But having them in areas where lots of people are going to be coming in and out, for example, in the schools, gymnasiums, places like that, that's where they need to be. But still, there has to be a program in place and a physician oversight ordering that.
I see.
To be able
and
to
just
buy
out
one.
of curiosity, what does an AED cost?
Well, if you think about that, they're a pretty sophisticated computer. You can find one for anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000.
You went back to saying that the organizations, schools, things of that nature are the ones who need to have these devices on site. So how do those organizations go about getting one? What steps can they go through to purchase that?
I think first of all, an organization should look at their need. And like I said, is it going to be a place where there's going to be a lot of people congregating? Or if it's a workplace, what is the number of people that work there? Another thing that they consider is what are the age of the workers or the age of the people. If you have a significant number over the age of 50, then having an AED might be more needed. So what is their level of need? The second thing they should consider is someone going to be available to be trained? So knowing CPR, knowing how to use the AED. Is there a physician that's going to order this for them? There's several companies out there that make AEDs, and American Heart Association doesn't recommend one over the other. There are a number of good ones out there, and sometimes if they will contact the company will help walk them through some of these steps that they're looking at and help them get some of the training and the medical oversight that they need.
Okay. We had talked before, we mentioned the sticker, the sign that we saw on the way in here that there was an AED device available in this building. I've heard that it's important to notify local EMS that those devices are on site. Can you tell us why that's important?
Well, actually, again, in the state of Kentucky, to set up an AED program, that's one of the things you're supposed to do, is contact your local EMS and let them know that you're purchasing and going to have an AED on site. It's going to make a little bit of difference when you call 911, the information that the dispatcher gives to the rescuer, knowing that there's an AED on site. It also helps when EMS is on the way. They know what kind of equipment that's going to be there, what kind of treatments may have already been performed, and they sometimes can give you some input on the type of AED that might be beneficial for you to purchase that would match the equipment that they're bringing in on the ambulance.
I see. I think probably the biggest part of this for me is how intimidating the machine actually is. I can't imagine a situation arising where I had to go and do and be expected to know. I know that they are automated, but they're accurate. They say they're easy to use. If they are so easy, why is it required that people have formal training on these devices?
Well, we recommend the formal training not so much for the AED, but for the CPR. And one of the things that we've found with 15 years or so of public access defibrillation is that just applying the AED doesn't make a difference in survival. If you don't follow that up with, if you don't have CPR before and after the AED has done its job, you're still not going to have survival. So the training is as much for the CPR piece as it is for the AED.
It is for the device.
So the AED, when you turn it on, will actually tell you everything you want to do with the AED. It talks you through exactly what you need to do.
But knowing the CPR on the side really is the key to success.
Key. Exactly.
Okay. So what kind of training is available in our area?
Well, both American Heart and Red Cross have training classes. Actually, the class for a non-healthcare provider to learn this is going to take maybe 2.5, 3 hours at the most to be able to do this skill, check off on this skill, know your CPR, know how to use an AED.
Okay, so I know that we probably want to let our viewers know there are a couple of places that they can receive information, and that's the redcross.org as well as AmericanHeart.org, and they can receive extra information there. Liability comes to mind when you start getting into training and certifications and learning. What type of liability goes along with these? If, for example, I've come up on a situation but I have not had training, what kind of liabilities are there that protect me, I guess?
Well, you have the Good Samaritan laws, and basically those Good Samaritan laws say that if you're trying to help to the best of your abilities, then you're not going to get sued, okay? The other thing is, if you will remember to call 911, they're going to talk you through it and tell you exactly the steps that you need to take. But the Good Samaritan laws cover this. So yes, we want you to have training. It's certainly going to move better if you have training, but that shouldn't eliminate the fact that you know where the AED is, you know how to get it out, you know how to bring it to the side of the victim, and then that 911 call is going to help you walk through that.
Okay. So once again, and we'll continue to repeat this throughout the show, our viewers can go to redcross.org as well as AmericanHeart.org, or they can contact you in the Education Department at Western Baptist Hospital, and we will repeat this number continually through the show, but 575-2723. We'll reach you and can find some more information there. I want to see a demonstration. I'm curious to see what the device looks like, what it sounds like, how that goes, how the CPR goes along with it, and then as we are talking about this, I want to touch on, because I have children, I have small children, and I really would like to touch on how this is different for children as for adults. So if we could make that demonstration, that'd be great. I'm very interested.
Okay.
Welcome back to Healthy Living. We are here with Freda Thompson, who is an RN and instructor in the educational department at Western Baptist Hospital, and she has been kind enough to bring Annie with her today, which I'm so glad. I hope that you can relieve some of my fears on her standing here is a little intimidating with this. Before we get started, we had talked before, there's been some new scientific developments that have come out just in the last few weeks on some new techniques. So if you want to talk about that, I think that's very interesting.
Well, American Heart Association every 5 years goes back and looks at all the research related to resuscitation, from basic CPR techniques through advanced cardiac life support techniques. So on October the 18th, they released their new science guidelines. There are a few changes, not some drastic changes, but I wanted to kind of show a little bit of the differences here, because while we released the science in October, some of the new classes won't be seen until probably March or so. And I want to make sure people understand that the way that they're doing CPR now, if they've taken a class, it's very good technique. But some of the research shows that maybe there's some better ways that will ultimately make sure that more people survive a sudden cardiac arrest. So for as many years, and I won't share on TV how many years I've been teaching CPR, but for the many years that I've been teaching CPR, we've always taught it with the memory device A, B, C. We're going to do airway, then we're going to breathe them, and then we're going to do compressions and pump on their chest. Okay. The change that's going to be big is we're going to change that to CAB. So as soon as we find the victim has collapsed, there's no signs of life with this victim, I'm going to ask someone to call 911, bring me the AED, and immediately go to compressions.
Okay.
So do you want me to show you a scene
I do.
Okay.
I'm ready to see this.
All right.
I am.
Well, then I'm going to let you hold on to the AED because I'm going to pretend it's going to take you a minute to go out and get that and bring it back to me.
All right.
So I have found this victim. Annie has collapsed. So I'm going to shake her. Annie, wake up, wake up. There's no signs of life. There's no movement or anything. I'm going to immediately go to the center of her chest. I'm going to stiffen my arms, and I'm going to push down 2 inches. I want at least 2 inches, and I'm going to do that 30 times. Okay? And you're on the way to bring me that AED and call 911. Okay? Now, you want to push fast, and I've lost count, so I don't know where 30 is, but you want to push fast and you want to push hard. So we said 2 inches, and we want a rate of at least 100. Okay? Now, after I've done 30 compressions, then I'm going to come back and I'm going to open up her airway, and I'm going to look for just a few seconds to see if she's breathing. And if I don't see definitely signs of breath, I'm going to give her 2 breaths. Each one should be nice and slow, because we want the air to go in the lungs and not into the stomach. Okay? And then immediately go back to her chest, and I'm going to start giving her another 30 compressions. Okay? So fast and deep. Okay? Now we're going to pretend that you made it back with the AED. As soon as the AED arrives, okay, I'm going to open that up, I'm going to stop my compressions, and I'm going to turn it on. Okay? I'm going to turn it around there so they can kind of see my...
Apply pads to patient's bare chest.
Okay, it's telling me what to do.
Pads connector.
And it'll get kind of angry with me if I don't do it quickly. Okay, so I've got a set of pads in here. Okay, and I'm going to open those up.
Apply pads. Plug-in connector.
And on the pads, there's actually a picture of exactly where they belong. So this one, it's showing to be here. Okay, and this one, it's showing to be on the victim's side.
Apply pads. Plug-in connector.
Okay, and so it's still telling me what to do. All right, the connector is going to go in here, and there's only one way that it will fit. Okay.
Analyzing heart rhythm.
Okay. Now, when it's analyzing, the victim has to be still. So I can't be touching the patient, doing compressions. Nobody can be touching the patient.
Advised.
That way, the
Charging.
Software that we talked about earlier
Stay clear
is able
of
to
patient.
analyze that heart rhythm. Okay. So
Deliver
it's
shock
decided
now.
it found
Press
a
the orange
shockable
button
rhythm.
now.
Okay. So I'm going to make sure nobody's touching the victim, and then I'm going to
Shock delivered.
apply the shock.
Paused.
Okay. Now,
If needed,
immediately
begin CPR.
after the shock, I'm going to go right back and doing my compressions again. Okay, so I'm going to do the compressions and the ventilations, 30, 2 breaths, 30 and 2 breaths for at least 2 minutes, and then I'm going to determine, has there been any other signs of life? If there's still no signs of life, I'm going to continue until the EMS services get there. Okay, so it gives us 1 shock. And we've talked a little bit, and I just happened to think when we were talking earlier that we talk about it being a defibrillator. What does that really mean? Well, there's a rhythm that can come along suddenly, and it's called ventricular fibrillation. So I could be healthy, I might have a little chest pain, and all of a sudden my heart starts fibrillating. And that means that the heart is just quivering, right? The electrical shock from this is going to just stop that quivering and give the heart an opportunity to develop an organized rhythm again. Okay?
Okay.
So that's what this machine is doing for us. If you're in ventricular fibrillation, it's going to stop that quivering and give the heart an opportunity to develop a normal beat.
Okay.
There are other rhythms that people can have. We've always heard, they're flatlining. That we call that asystole. If the machine sees that, it's going to tell you that no shock is advised and to continue CPR. So it recognizes the difference. That's a rhythm that's not going to be helped by electricity versus fibrillation would be helped by electricity.
So there are some situations where this particular device wouldn't prove to be the best option.
That's correct.
Okay.
But typically, if someone collapses suddenly in front of you,
Analyzing heart rhythm.
it's not going to
Do
be
not touch the
a flat
patient.
line. It's going to be fibrillation.
Okay.
And you'll notice it's timed out 2 minutes, so that was telling us that it's time to come off the chest and let the machine try
would have been
to
doing it.
analyze it again.
Okay, the compressions until then.
Right.
Just opening this up, it really has kind of calmed my nerves about it, that there aren't a lot of buttons.
There's not.
It is very user-friendly.
It tells you every step that you need to take. Pictures on it
Yes.
so that you know exactly where to place things.
I can imagine, though, that a child would be smaller than this. Will this machine work on a child, a small child, for example?
The recommendation for children under the age of 8 or so would be a different set of pads. So some people will have with their AED adult pads and pediatric pads. The pediatric pads are going to be about half of the size of this pad, and they'll have we call it an attenuator. I don't really know what that means, but it drops the dose of electricity so that you're not giving an adult dose to a child.
Right.
However, the American Heart Association in their guidelines say if you don't have that pediatric set of pads and your child has collapsed, it's better to use the adult size and the adult dose than none at all.
Then none at all.
Right.
Okay.
The placement of the pads may have to be a little bit different. So if I've got a 3 or 4 year old child, certainly these may not fit on here. Okay. So what we would do is we would actually put them on the front and on the back.
On the back. Okay.
So that the electricity is going through the heart.
Okay.
And that's our goal.
And so the training that we would receive on the particular device would tell us that. If I hadn't received training, how would I know that? Or would it just be okay for me to go ahead and use?
You can go ahead and use them, but again, what we would really want you to be doing is talking to that 911 dispatcher,
and they would be able
and
to.
they are going to know all of that.
That is good information. Freda, it has been wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for bringing Annie.
You're welcome.
She has not been as overwhelming as I thought. Like I said, the buttons are very simple. It does talk you through, and it's been very good.
I think it's important to understand how simple it is, but also how much the training will do for you.
Right.
Because if I come up on this victim and they're lifeless, that's already a nerve-wracking experience for me.
Sure.
And now I'm going to have to do compressions, and I'm going to have to remember the steps, and I'm going to have to remember that AED steps. And I think what training does is it lets you practice that so that when that person collapses and the nerves are going wild, you're thinking, okay, I've done this before, and gives you a little bit more confidence.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. I think I'm interested in taking a course now. So for myself and for our viewers, we can direct them again to, let me get this correct, it's AmericanHeart.org and then redcross.org. Or they can contact you in the Education Department at Western Baptist, and that's 575-2723.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you to Annie. Thank you to Freda. We want to thank you so much for joining us for this edition of Healthy Living. We hope that this has been important, vital information to you. If you've missed any part of this particular segment, you can go to our website. That's www.paducah2.org, and this segment, as well as several others, are there for your viewing at any time. You can also email me if you have any questions, or if you would like to request a specific topic for the next Healthy Living. My email address is timeforhealthyliving@gmail.com. And again, www.paducah2.org, and you can find the videos there. Freda, again, thank you so much for joining us, and we want you to remember, it is always time for healthy living. Thank you for joining us.